Hi everyone, it's Bex here, and I'm here with Dr. Frank Lipman from drfranklipman.com and Jennifer Mielke from conservationista.com, which is such a great name, I love it. And we're talking about alternative medicine integrated with traditional medicine. I know it's something that you all ask me about all the time because you don't know what's real and you don't know what works. So we're going to clear it up for you today. You have a philosophy called good medicine, and for the few people in my audience who do not know what that is, what does that mean exactly?
Well, good medicine just means good medicine. So you use Western medicine when it's appropriate for trauma, for acute infections, for acute medical emergencies like heart attacks, acute surgical emergencies if you burst your appendix. But Western medicine is not particularly good at chronic problems, at day-to-day problems. So what happens is you go to a doctor and you've got a headache, or you can't poop, or you can't sleep, or you're getting bloated, and they give you a drug. And drugs don't really help for those things. So good medicine is using Western medicine, which is basically drugs and surgery, for when it's appropriate, when you break your leg, when you have to go to the hospital, but using alternatives or supplements, meditation, yoga, diet for most other problems. So there's lifestyle medicine for most problems, and when that doesn't work, that's the first offense. When that doesn't work, you always have pharmaceuticals to resort to. Most of the time you don't need them. You
say this with a very matter-of-fact tone.
Well, it is. I've been doing this for...
No, I know, but I go to my doctor and he's definitely not prescribing meditation, ever. When I was first struggling with depression, I went to my doctor, and it was first visit they wanted to put me on antidepressants, and that's how I got into fitness. So how did you come to this realization or this method of practice that includes alternative medicine?
Well, to me it's not even alternative, it's just, as I say, good medicine. If you drive in your car and the oil light goes on, do you put a band-aid over the oil light and drive on, or do you see why the oil light goes on? So if you're depressed, or if you bloated, or if you got reflux, or if you can't sleep, do you just take a drug which is just like a band-aid, just suppressing the symptoms, or do you see why you have those symptoms? So to me, those symptoms are lights going on, telling me something's off with the system, and what I try to do is, how do you balance the system so you don't have those lights going off? So
let's say that the oil light, this warning sign that something's wrong, is not necessarily going off all the time. For me, for instance, I have chronic Lyme disease. So the oil light isn't going off all the time that I would have to rush back to the doctor, but I need to manage my health from day to day.
Sure. Well, first of all, the oil light probably went on initially when you had Lyme disease, and then you need antibiotics. I'm not against antibiotics, especially for Lyme disease. When you have, especially acute Lyme disease, you need to treat it with antibiotics. And then there's a whole school of thought that actually gives, longer term antibiotics for chronic Lyme disease too. So there's a place for antibiotics in Lyme disease, but in terms of management, Jennifer's going to address that, because that has to do with lifestyle.
Sure. Let's introduce Jennifer once again. So you're a health coach, and this is where this is a place where I would call you. How do I manage my day-to-day life? And explain to me why it's so important to have a health coach if you're trying to get back on track.
Sure. Well,
stay on track.
Stay on track, right? I think for most of us, we know that having a supportive community around us is a really important element to being and staying healthy and making sustainable changes in our habits. So sometimes you can build that with your friends and family and within your community, but it's really useful, I think, just like you would have a yoga teacher, just like you may have a personal trainer, to have someone who's there, specifically to answer your questions, to give you pointers. You can go to the gym and lift weights and get something out of it. You can sort of look online and figure out what to eat and do moderately well, but having a person who can help you with shortcuts and can help you tweak when things aren't exactly working still, even though you think you're doing all of the right things, it's really forms this invaluable partnership.
That's interesting that you say personal trainer, because I think that we spend money on a lot of things in our lives that don't seem like extravagant expenses, because the argument that I already hear coming through the screen is, I can't afford a health coach. And I think it's important to always invest in your health, but we don't realize that there are so many coaches in our lives. I'm a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, all of these people that you go to make sure that you're doing the right thing, that you're addressing your individual needs. It's so important. So I think health coaching is a great
I think what people don't realize is the default choices in our culture are unhealthy. So when you go shopping at the supermarket, 90% of the food is unhealthy. When you go to a restaurant, it's unhealthy. So I think it's helpful to have a health coach who can guide you through the specifics on how to stay healthy. Most of your audience, I assume, are young, and you're not really feeling the oil light going off. But when you get older, the oil light starts going off a lot, and if you don't look after yourself, the oil light stays on.
Right.
So I think it's really important to get into these good habits, and it's hard to know how to eat healthily because we're not taught that way. Our doctors don't teach us that. We don't learn that at school. You go to the supermarket, you watch TV, whatever you do, it's promoting unhealthy foods. So I think it's really helpful to have someone to help guide you.
See, I think from my experience that the oil light is going off with young people. They're suffering from obesity and back pain at younger and younger ages, and it's very scary. So I talk a lot about prevention and what we could do, and I know that you have a wonderful line of supplements. And what the main question I get about supplements is, why do I need them? Can I just get the nutrients I need from the food that I eat? So why do you advocate for supplements?
Great question. I think maybe 50 years ago, when the soil wasn't as depleted and the food was organic, you probably were able to get all your nutrients from food. But in this day and age, the food we're eating is full of chemicals, so that means we need more nutrients. There's more stress in our lives, that means we need more nutrients. And the food we're eating is more depleted. We're not getting as many nutrients in the food we're eating. So we're not getting enough nutrients from the food, and our needs are greater because of the stress in our life and because of all the chemicals we're exposed to. So that's why I'm a huge believer in I take a shitload of supplements. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you can say it.
Because I'm much older than I'm probably double your age, but that's
probably not, but okay.
The point is, as you get older, it becomes more important to, I think, and even young people. I mean, we see incredible results with people taking supplements. It doesn't mean you have to take a lot, and often it needs to be targeted. But when people experience how much better they can feel, then they realize that. So yeah, we get this argument all the time. Can't I get it in the food? And actually, the culture says so, doctors say so, but the food generally is full of crap. You're not getting enough nutrients in your food, and you need those building blocks for your body to function optimally.
I think that's so important. I think people don't know that even if you're eating organic foods, they are not as nutrient rich as the foods that our parents and our grandparents were eating, because the soil has been depleted. And this is an environmental issue as much as a health issue. So yes, supplements are definitely needed, and I think it's something to definitely look into for yourself. Address your own needs, talk to a health coach, talk about what you might be lacking, and supplement your diet with things that you can't get from just going to your local grocery store.
Yeah, and I think just to jump in on that too, I mean, I'm a health coach, so I'm pretty cognizant of this stuff, and I would still say, if I really look hard at my diet, I'm not getting even though I consciously eat very well, I'm not getting 5 servings of leafy greens in a day. Like, I think most of us, we like to say, oh, I can just get it from Whole Foods, but the reality is we're not really eating that much of the right kind of foods anyway.
Right.
And we're not saying don't eat really good organic foods. We still encourage people to eat a healthy. This is not in lieu of a healthy diet. This is in addition to a healthy diet.
Absolutely, absolutely. I talk to my followers about growing their own food and supporting local farms, and really avoiding the pesticides, not just for your own body but for the environment. But definitely the supplementation.
Listen to her.
for supplementing, I also want people to live an excellent life, not just base level health. health. I don't want them to function. I want them to thrive.
Exactly.
So that's where it's important that we bring in coaches, that we bring in supplements, and we try to be our best selves, not just adequate selves. And that's a way a lot of people are operating from day to day. They're just plugging away. They're just getting through.
Right.
And they think that that's like enough, or that that's normal, you know, that that's all there is.
Absolutely. So parting thoughts, what would you say is if you had to make a ladder of the most important things that people can do in terms of their health for themselves every single day, exercise, meditation, mindfulness, what are the most important things that you really want people to practice on a daily basis?
Well, I think all of those are important. Exercise, diet, stress management, sleep, those are your sort of pillars, and then community and more non-specific things. But depends what you're looking at. I mean, most people, for instance, look at weight loss and they think if they exercise more, they're going to lose weight. Mm-hmm. My experience, or in my humble opinion, but it's definitely been my experience, I'd say 80% of weight loss comes from diet and only 20% of food for most people. For most people. Not everyone's a little bit different, but my experience has been if you want to lose weight, you've got to change your diet. Not that you shouldn't exercise. Mm-hmm. In terms of, but if I look at long term as we get older, I think exercise may even become more important than diet. Not that diet's not important.
Right.
When I look at older patients, and you know, I've come across a lot of old people, the ones who stay vital in their heads and not only their bodies, but whose minds are sharp, tend to be people who've been exercising a lot. So
okay. I
think in terms of weight loss, I think diet is more important. In terms of vitality and keeping your brain going and staying functioning as you get older, exercise may even be more important. But I don't think it's an either or. I think exercise, diet, doing some yoga or meditation, because we all need some type of stress management. And then sleep is a forgotten
yes, I was going to point that out. Sleep. So I love sleep.
So I think all of those are really important.
Cleanses have become very popular.
Right.
And I talk about juice cleansing, not so much to completely detox, but to reset. What do you recommend in terms of cleansing?
Well, I'm a huge fan of cleanses, but I have very strong opinions on what a cleanse is.
Okay.
A cleanse really should be something that supports your body's own detoxification systems. So juice cleansers are fine. I'm not against juice cleansers, and you feel a little bit better. But if you really want to reboot your system and you really want to feel better quickly, do a proper cleanse, like my cleanse.
So tell me about your cleanse.
So what my cleanse does is that not only do you eliminate, so you are eating, you can have 2 meals a day, and then we give you 3 shakes. So it's not that you're eliminating all food.
That's quite a bit, actually.
But yeah, but they're small meals and shake. So but you're eliminating the sugar, the gluten, the dairy, the corn, the caffeine, the alcohol, all the irritants, and the foods that tend to trigger inflammation. So you're removing those foods, and at the same time, there are nutrients in the cleanse that actually, there's fiber that cleans your gut out, the nutrients that support liver function, which is your main detox organ, and most important, there are antimicrobial, antibacterial, they're antimicrobial or herbal antibiotics, as I call them, that kill the bad bacteria in the gut, because that's a huge source of toxicity. And when we do that with people, after 2 weeks, people feel fantastic, and they go, "Ooh, I want to feel like this." So it's a wonderful way, it's a wonderful entry point into a healthy way of living, because people feel so much better. And once someone experiences that feeling of vitality, then you've got them hooked. Right. They don't have to listen to you, Jennifer, or me.
No more.
You know, you're hooked. Once you feel that, you've got, you know what, you know that. Once you feel like that,
absolutely,
you've got the bug. And the cleanse is a wonderful way to get people to feel really good really quickly.
I love that. I love that it includes getting rid of caffeine. It's something that I'm a big advocate for. I'm not into it. You know that I've been on my off coffee since April, and I'm awake and alive, and I'm waking up every morning with no headaches whatsoever. So you can do it too. I want to thank you so much for sitting with me today and taking this time out of your very busy practice. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You can find links to everything that Dr. Lipman has to offer in the video description below, and then over on my blog at BEXLIFE.com. And I will see you again soon. Love you guys. We are so blessed for getting such great information directly from Dr. Frank Lipman and Jennifer Mielke, but it doesn't have to end here. For more information on his work, supplements, cleanse, and all of his wonderful health coaches, visit him at drfranklipman.com. I'll see you soon in another exclusive BEXLIFE video.